Anthropic just had its two newest and most powerful AI models taken offline by the US government. And honestly, the AI world is still trying to process what this means. We are talking about Claude Fable 5 and Claude Mythos 5, models that launched just days ago, and now they are gone for every single person on the planet. Not slowed down, not limited to certain countries, completely switched off for every paying customer worldwide. And the craziest part is that even Anthropic's own staff who aren't US citizens lost access to. So let's talk about it. Here's the thing. On June 9, Anthropic launched Fable 5 as the first publicly available model in what they call the Mythos class, which is one full tier above their previous best model Opus 4.8. It was a massive release. People were calling it the biggest capability jump Anthropic had ever made available to the public. Then on Friday, June 12th, at exactly 5:21 p.m. Eastern Time, things changed completely. According to Axios, which first broke the story, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick sent a letter directly to Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei. The letter used something called an export control directive, which is normally the kind of tool the US government uses to stop dangerous technology from reaching other countries. This time, it was aimed straight at Anthropic's own products and it demanded action immediately. The order said no foreign national anywhere in the world, inside or outside the US, could use Fable 5 or Mythos 5. That includes regular customers overage. That includes Anthropic's own employees who happen to not be US citizens. And here's the part that made this so messy. According to multiple reports, Anthropic has no way to filter foreign nationals from regular users in real time. So the only way to actually follow the order was to turn the models off for absolutely everyone, every customer, every country, gone within hours of the letter arriving. Now here is where it gets interesting, because the numbers on what just got pulled make the story even wilder. Before the shutdown, Fable 5 was scoring 80.3% on SWV Bench Pro, a real-world software engineering benchmark, compared to 69.2% for Opus 4.8 and just 58.6% for OpenAI's GPT 5.5. On Cognition's Frontier Code Diamond evaluation, which tests the hardest coding tasks under real production standards, Fable 5 scored 29.3%, more than double Opus 4.8's 13.4%, and more than 5 times GPT 5.5's 5.7%. On GDPval AA, a knowledge work benchmark scored by ELO, Fable 5 hit 1932 points, well ahead of Opus 4.8's 1890 and GPT 5.5's 1769. These numbers all come from Anthropic's own launch benchmark table published on June 9. The longer and more complex a task was, the bigger Fable 5's lead grew over every other model. One early customer, Stripe, said that in a 50 million line Ruby codebase, Fable 5 completed a full codebase wide migration in a single day, work that would have taken an entire team over 2 months by hand, according to Anthropic's launch post. To be clear, Mythos 5 was the more locked down version. It was never sold to regular people. When it first launched on April, it went to roughly 50 initial partners through something Anthropic calls Project Glasswing. Companies like Amazon Web Services, Apple, Google, Microsoft, CloudStrike, Nvidia, and Palo Alto Networks, all using it specifically for cybersecurity defense work. By the time Fable 5 launched on June 9, Anthropic had already expanded that program to approximately 200 organizations total across more than 15 countries, according to Anthropic's own Glasswing expansion post. And the results from that program were genuinely striking. According to Anthropic's own Project Glasswing initial update, those roughly 50 initial partners found more than 10,000 high or critical severity security flaws in just the first month. Cloudflare alone found 2,000 bugs across its critical systems, 400 of which were high or critical severity, with a false positive rate Cloudflare's team described as better than human testers. So Fable 5, the public version, was built on the same underlying model as Mythos 5, but with extra filters layered on top. Those filters watch for questions about cybersecurity, biology, and chemistry, or anything that looks like someone trying to copy the model's behavior, which Anthropic calls distillation. If a question trips one of those filters, it quietly gets answered by Opus 4.8 instead, and the user gets told this happened. Anthropic says this fallback only kicks in for fewer than 5% of conversations, meaning over 95% of the time people were talking to the full Fable 5. Anthropic also red teamed these safeguards for thousands of hours before launch, working with the US government, the UK AI Safety Institute, and external security organizations. So, why did the government act? According to Anthropic's own statement, the letter did not provide specific details of its national security concern. But Anthropic says its understanding is that another company claimed to the government it had found a way to get around one of Fable 5's safety filters. Specifically, the technique involved asking the model to read a code base and find software bugs in it. According to Axios, the administration had actually tried to get Anthropic to delay the release entirely before launch, and when that failed, they sent the export control letter. NBC News reported the letter was written with help from officers at the Commerce Department's Bureau of Industry and Security. Anthropic reviewed the reported jailbreak and said the same capability is already available in other public models, including OpenAI's GPT 5.5, and that security teams use this kind of code analysis as normal defensive work every day. In fairness, Anthropic did not go quietly. They published a detailed public statement the same evening, pushing back on the entire decision. Their words were that the finding of a narrow potential jailbreak should not be cause for recalling a commercial model deployed to hundreds of millions of people to use Anthropic's own characterization of its user base. They went even further, warning that if every AI company had to pull a model every time someone found one small workaround, it would effectively stop new frontier model launches across the entire industry, not just at Anthropic. NBC News noted this appears to be the first time a leading AI company has ever taken a publicly deployed model offline because of direct government intervention. And honestly, this isn't even the first major clash between Anthropic and the US government this year. Back in February, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth reportedly told Anthropic it needed to drop certain safety rules if it wanted to keep working with the Pentagon. Anthropic's hard limits were things like refusing to let Claude be used for fully autonomous weapons or mass surveillance of US citizens. Anthropic said no. Shortly after, President Trump directed all federal agencies to stop using Anthropic's tools, and the Department of Defense labeled Anthropic a supply chain risk, a designation that has historically only been used for foreign companies considered threats to national security. Anthropic sued. During the court hearing, US District Judge Lita Lynn said from the bench, "I don't know if it's murder, but it looks like an attempt to cripple Anthropic, as reported by TechCrunch and The Hill." She granted Anthropic an injunction, ordering the government to reverse the designation. That litigation is still ongoing. Now here's the part of the story that really makes your head spin. At the same time, the Pentagon was backlisting Anthropic. The Financial Times and TechCrunch reported that the NSA was actively using Mythos for offensive cyber operations, with around half a dozen Anthropic engineers physically embedded inside the agency. One person familiar with the arrangement told the FT the model would be useful for infiltrating networks in countries like China and Iran. The NSA declined to confirm or deny it. Anthropic did not comment. And separately, Claude has been deployed on classified military networks through Anthropic's partnership with Palantir, confirmed by Semaphore, CNBC, and Anthropic's own DoD partnership page under a $200 million contract. So you have one part of the US government blacklisting Anthropic, another part using its most powerful model for offensive cyber missions, and now a third part ordering that same model shut down entirely. Three different arms of the same government all pulling in completely different directions at the same time. There is also a business side of this that's impossible to ignore. Anthropic recently filed confidential paperwork for a public stock listing, and its most recent funding round valued the company at around $965 billion. Having your flagship models pulled offline by the government just days after launch is not the kind of story that builds investor confidence. Some are already asking whether this kind of intervention could happen again with future models, which creates a real planning problem for any company trying to build and release frontier AI. So to be clear, this only affects Fable 5 and Mythos 5. Claude Opus 4.8, Sonnet, Haiku, and all other Anthropic models are working completely normally. This is specifically about the newest and most powerful tier Anthropic had just opened to the public for the first time. That's where we will wrap it up. The real question now is whether this gets resolved quickly through negotiation or whether it turns into the same kind of prolonged legal fight Anthropic is already in with the Department of Defense. Drop your thoughts below, make sure you are subscribed, hit the like button, and I will see you in the next one.